through. Welcome to our breakfast briefing. I'm just going to briefly tell you who we are and run you through the agenda, and then I'm going to hand you over to Andy Schmidt. We at Seismic are an international team of sustainability experts on a mission to help businesses prosper by becoming increasingly impactful and influential forces. And the way that we do that is by bringing together B Corp advisors, net zero experts, communications consultants, and sustainability strategists all come together and help businesses lead the shift. It's just a sample of some of the clients that we work with, a whole range across B2B and B2C and some mix. And just to let you know our plan for today, we will make a bit of time because what's important to us is to give you the chance to ask some questions. But we're going to run through some top tips and advice about B Corp for B2B businesses. And we're going to then touch on some examples of how B Corps are using, how B2B B Corps are using and succeeding with the framework. And then we've got a conversation with the wonderful Louise Harman, who is a trustee for the law firm Bates Wells, as well as a trustee for B Corp. And Andy Schmidt is now going to take us through some slides to talk to you about the B Corp landscape. Andy is our co-founder and chief community officer here at Seismic. We're very lucky to have someone with such a wealth of experience. He was one of the founders of the B Corp movement in Europe, and after a long career at Skype, helping them to be a force for good, he's founded Seismic 2 years ago, along with our two other co-founders, and is able to share some of his insight with you today. So over to you, Andy.
Thank you so much, Olivia, and good morning, everyone. And thank you all for being with us here today and for bearing with us with a little tech hiccup, even after many months of running the breakfast briefings. The tech gods can still get you from time to time. So really appreciate you sticking with it. And it will definitely be worth it because we've got the great treat of hearing and learning today, not only from one another, but from Louise from Bates Wells. As Olivia mentioned, Bates Wells was one of the founding B Corps in the UK, and they have been supporting and advising B Lab, which is the standards body and the nonprofit organization behind the B Corp certification, and the movement and community in general in a number of ways for many years. And as Olivia mentioned, Louise is also a trustee on the board of B Lab UK. So it's a really unique opportunity for us to hear her very unique perspective on the community, the movement, and especially how B2B businesses are leveraging the B Corp framework and engaging with the community and movement. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes, 5 minutes maybe, just challenging some common held beliefs or perceptions that many people have around the B Corp community. And then I'm going to go into a few observations that we at Seismic have had from our clients who are B2B businesses, some of who are B2B businesses and B2B and B2C businesses, and how the unique ways that they're both leveraging the B Corp framework and engaging with the community. And then Louise and I will have an informal chat, and we're going to leave plenty of time at the end for questions and discussions. So first thing I wanted to check in on, if you look at the businesses here, all B Corps, oftentimes you see a number of well-known brands here, some of which are really kind of household name brands, from Innocent Drinks and Ben & Jerry's to the Body Shop. And so it's a common held perception that B Corp is great for consumer brands and B2C businesses. But actually, the data tells us something different. And next slide, please, Krista. Actually, over 60% of certified B Corps around the world are B2B businesses, which this was a bit of an eye-opener for me the first time I had heard it or seen it. And if you think about B2B businesses or businesses that are have both B2B and B2C segments within them, it's much higher than that. So even though there might be very well recognized consumer brands in the B Corp community, and they might be the ones that get talked about a lot, actually, the B Corp framework and the B Corp community is very much relevant for B2B businesses. And then another, maybe it's not a secret by any means, but a lesser known fact is that we hear oftentimes around those brands we saw on the previous slide, which are the 6,500 and always growing community of certified B corporations, of which there's over 1,200 in the UK and another 1,200 across Europe. But actually, there's over 240,000 organizations who are using the B Corp framework to understand, measure, and improve their sustainability performance, their ESG performance. And so that makes the B Corp framework one of, if not the most widely adopted impact management frameworks on the planet. Again, those B Corps, those certified B Corps is oftentimes what we're familiar with, but there's a much wider ecosystem of organizations of all shapes and sizes that are benefiting from the B Corp framework as a sustainability ESG framework. And then another common belief I think that we hear is, yeah, B Corp's great for purpose-driven brands, but we hear it very commonly, we're investor-backed, and in addition to looking after people and planet, we really need to focus on growth. And so there's a common perception that B Corp isn't right for those type of organizations. But actually, what we're seeing and hearing, and backed up by what you'll find in the B Corp directory, is that B Corp is literally sweeping across the private equity and venture capital space. The reasons that we hear and see behind it is because businesses that are applying the same rigor and discipline to measuring and reporting on social and environmental performance as they've gotten very good at and doing around operational performance and financial performance, they're actually proving to be more resilient in challenging business cycles and more profitable. B Corps have just gained a reputation for being well-managed businesses who are oftentimes led by high-performing teams who also understand their market, and that makes them very investable. The data points towards actually that 70% of B Corps who have sought some type of investment have secured all or more than they had initially sought. So kind of three maybe less known facts that we wanted to, or perceptions around B Corp, that it's mostly B2C brands, but actually the majority of the community is B2B. That in addition to those 6,500 well-known certified B Corps, there are actually over 240,000 organizations using the B Corp framework, making it one of the most used B Corp impact management frameworks on the planet. And then, yes, there's purpose-driven brands make up a lot of the B Corp community, but there are also less known investor-backed businesses that are across the B Corp community as well. And now I just wanted to, after setting the scene a little bit, wanted to share from our perspective a few observations about how B2B businesses are leveraging B Corp, either the B Impact Assessment, the framework itself, or engaging the community in ways that might be similar, but also maybe different to other businesses. Next slide, please, Krista. The first of which is just to call out, awareness is important, but in our experience, B2B businesses are in a unique position to inform and influence and inspire our other organizations. This image here is really the business as a force for good ecosystem, of which you can see at the core of it is those certified B Corps. But in addition to it, there's all kinds of different actors, including those organizations measuring and improving their impact using the B impact assessment, including investors, including academia and other players like intermediaries. And we really need all of these organizations to be leveraging business as a force for good and using credible practical frameworks like the B Corp framework and promoting them if we're going to create the type of shift that is needed. And what we see is that our clients who are B2B businesses oftentimes have very extensive client or customer lists of their own. They've got maybe smaller but very trusted relationships with a number of suppliers. And the relationships that they have oftentimes, because of their competencies and credibility, when a B2B business speaks to its clients or its suppliers or its network around business trends, people listen, organizations listen. So I think we really just wanted to call out that you may not always, it's easy in your day-to-day, week-to-week, but maybe to lose sight of the influence and the opportunity that you have to leverage your relationships and raise awareness around frameworks like B Corp. And maybe just one other thing to call out, one element of the B Corp community, which never ceases to amaze me, is just how generous the community is with its time and sharing knowledge and experience to help bring others into this ecosystem and on this journey, as Louise is generously doing with us today. So I imagine we have in our virtual room here today a number of organizations that are already B Corps and others that are on a B Corp journey and others that are just exploring it. So if you're in that early days of your B Corp journey and it ever would be useful to have someone else at a later stage of their journey come and engage others in your team, do just put out the ask. I think you'll find that there's, even though everyone's got busy schedules and diaries, there's in the B Corp community always a willingness to make time for those opportunities. Next slide, please, Krista. As I mentioned, the B Corp framework, the backbone of it is the B impact assessment, which, as it says on the left-hand side, it's a great way for organizations to measure, understand, improve social and environmental performance across all of your activities of your businesses. But there's a couple of unique ways that we've seen B2B businesses leveraging the framework and really to accelerate the positive change they're making in the world. So for example, some of the advisory businesses we speak with and work with, say advertising, brand, creative agencies, marketing, comms agencies, we hear that they've been kind of reflecting and discussing internally, and there's a desire to work with more mission-oriented, purpose-driven businesses whose main mission might be to contribute to or address certain social and environmental challenges, but they haven't quite been able to get real progress or momentum behind it. Or we've heard financial advisory or accountancy firms who want to do more help in the work, more work in the area of helping their clients, say, set up financial instruments which improve sustainability performance. But again, the desire is there, but it's been challenging to get things moving. And this is where the B Corp framework and the process can be really beneficial and help turn that intent into concrete action and actual progress. So one example is this question on the upper right-hand side here, which you would get recognized in the B Corp framework for the portion of your work that supports purpose-driven organizations. So that might be nonprofit organizations, that might be B Corps, that might be certain public institutions. And so how this would work in real concrete terms is you would take a look at all of your business and what percentage of it, say by revenue, currently is earned by supporting, advising those type of organizations, nonprofits, B Corps, public institutions. And let's say you take that, you get that view of where you are right now, and let's say it's 10%. You might then set yourself an objective as a team that say, by 2025, we want to increase that portion of our client base or the work we do to 25%. You would then, on an annual basis or more frequently, if you wish, kind of recalculate and look back and reflect, okay, at the end of 2023, where were we? If you were roughly around 15%, you might feel like you're kind of on track to building towards that 25 by 25 target you've set yourself. If you were, had maybe reached 8%, you might say, okay, in 2024, the next year ahead, we're going to have a more concentrated effort to do more work with these purpose-driven organizations. And what are the concrete things we need to do behind that to make that a reality? So it's actually, it's simple but profound, and we've seen it work time and time again, taking desire, turning it into intent, and then turning it into action. Next slide, please, Krista. So the last area we wanted to highlight is just the commercial opportunities that come from engaging with the B Corp community, and ideally potentially being a B Corp yourself. It is a well-known fact that B Corps love to do business with other B Corps. And this is a quote from Adam, founder of Red Ink. Red Ink does marketing materials, printed materials, and this is just one example of many that you hear, that upon becoming a B Corp, especially for B2B businesses, and gaining access to this community of over 2,400 companies across the UK and Europe who love to do business with each other, that business is booming from there forward. Next slide, please, Krista. And one of the ways that happens, again, in real concrete terms, this is a screenshot of what's known as the B Corp directory. So oftentimes when a B Corp is going to look for a new supplier, they need a new service or product or good provided, the B Corp directory is the first place they go. And in this example here, it was searching for a financial consultant. But let's say we were looking for legal advice. What we might find on the next slide is the profile of a B Corp. So this is the Bates Wells profile on the B Corp directory. You get an introduction to the organization, link to their website, and then on the right-hand side, all B Corps make the high-level scores from their B Corp assessment visible. So first of all, congratulations, Louise and team. This is an outstanding B Corp score. And this is how B Corps go about choosing who they do business with. And when they know they've got a values-aligned organization, who B Corps are well known for the quality of the services and goods that they provide, it's oftentimes a no-brainer. This is where companies want to go to. And so if you are a certified B Corp, you get benefit from being listed on this directory, but you don't have to be a certified B Corp to start engaging with the companies on this directory. Next time if you're not a B Corp yet, please do go ahead and check out the B Corp directory as a way to support high-performing, purpose-driven organizations. And then in addition, we want to just share one example here from, I think, what we're starting to see, and that we're really just scratching the surface here around how companies are innovating around the B Corp framework in order to come up with new service offerings and new commercial opportunities. So Bates Wells, Louise and the team over there, they advise B Lab on what's known as the mission lock legal requirement. And they have also advised on the Better Business Act, where they have built up specific capabilities and knowledge that they've turned and leveraged into a service offering that they can advise other companies who are looking to update their corporate governance and articles. There's other examples. Another client of ours are using the B Corp framework in order to engage the retail clients. They've actually, we've helped them form a little bit of a mini B impact assessment, and they're using that to engage the retail customers and help them improve their social and environmental performance. So there's a lot, and I think, again, we're just scratching the surface on where we are in terms of innovation around the B Corp framework and the different ways that B2B businesses can use it to come up with new innovative services and commercial opportunities. And I'm conscious of time because we had a late start, and I actually want to go ahead and make sure we have plenty of time for the conversation with Louise. So I'm going to suggest that we jump straight over to that now. Welcome, Louise. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking time to be with us here today, and not just today. I think the first time we met, Louise, you were generously lending your time. I think Amy and I were doing a B Leaders training, and you came to speak with the group there. And I think you mentioned you're having another chat this afternoon with another organization. So you're the epitome of that B Corp spirit. Sharing knowledge and experience to help others along the journey. So thank you so much, Louise.
No, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you. And really interesting as well, Andy, to hear some of those facts, some of which, you know, were new to me. So it's great to hear some of those.
Great, great. Well, Louise, I think, you know, having Bates Wells having been a founding B Corp back in 2015, and also, you know, which was, I think, around 60 B Corps at the time. And now, end of last year in the UK, celebrated 1,000 B Corps in the UK community, which, you know, I think even when you and I met, that was 2018, 2019, and there was probably a couple hundred. To think about 1,000 in the UK, I don't think we could have imagined it at that point. So just really rapid growth of the community and the movement, as well as Bates Wells' journey from its initial certification to recertification and its contribution and role in the community and movement. Just love to hear from your perspective, any reflections on that period and time and change.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot has happened in those many years. As you said, we became a B Corp back in 2015. At the time, it was a very small community, approximately 60, all quite aligned, sort of small to medium-sized businesses. And we'd been really involved in the B Corp community from the outset as a firm. So we helped set B Lab UK up as a charity. And then myself and Luke Fletcher and a group of others formed a policy council to write the legal requirements for B Corps, as you mentioned. And I suppose for us as a firm, it felt like a very natural fit. We've always been very values driven. In fact, approximately 65% of our client base are charities, social enterprises, and now mission-driven businesses. So it felt very natural for us to take that step to certify. But still, you know, as a partnership with approximately 35 partners, we did need significant buy-in, and different partners have different priorities. And as a profession, lawyers are naturally quite conservative. So it's still, you know, there was still some discussion around it, but it did feel very natural, and it didn't take too much discussion for us to get to that point. And I'd say about our journey is that it's really sort of set us off on a pathway of improvement. I'd say it really helped us to hone our values and avoid mission drift in a way that we may otherwise not have been able to. I think where you're in a business with so many different priorities and, as I've said, different partners, it really helped us to sharpen our focus. And we've got really, really good senior leadership buy-in to been a B Corp, and that's been a really crucial part of it all. And it is now a very central part of our strategy. So I co-lead our purpose and impact strategy for the firm, and we've just gone through a process of encouraging different departments to adapt objectives around purpose and impact. For example, what initiative are you going to be doing to help to change the law or to use law as a force for good? So we're really looking at it at a more granular level across the business, sort of how are we embedding our purpose and impact strategy across the business. And more generally speaking, it's helped us to take decisions such as to formally recognise the climate emergency back in 2019, to move to our pensions being a default sustainable pension, to take risks and to push for changes such as the Better Business Act and various other landmark sort of strategic litigation cases. And then it was really interesting, some of your reflections about B2B businesses. And as a B2B business, I'd say that internally it's really helped us with our own operational practices. So contracting with other businesses such as Reconomy, Red Ink, Wild Hearts. You know, most of our suppliers now are B Corps and purpose-driven businesses, and we've really used the BIA to help us to screen suppliers and ensure that they're aligned, and also to help those suppliers in getting to where they need to be. And then I really liked how you described informing and inspiring and influencing, because more generally, I would also say that the status has really encouraged us to go further for our clients. And that's been in a number of different ways. So as I mentioned, the idea of law being a force for good, that's really quite a central part of our strategy. And we've brought many cases like supporting Uber drivers to get employment rights, helping the Horniman Museum return the Benning bronzes. So big landmark cases, but also down to the sort of our day-to-day client work, where we've adopted a slightly different approach to our contracts, for example, where we've sort of taken a positive approach to making them more plain English, which to many non-lawyers is a big achievement, and to try and shift the power balance to make those contracts more equitable, sort of using the B Corp ethos to change the sort of legal landscape in the way in which we contract. And we've been involved in quite a lot of different innovative governance models, looking at steward ownership, very similar to the model that Patagonia has adopted. We've been involved in different initiatives around that. And we've been doing a lot of work as well on the real estate side around sustainability in the built environment. So advising clients about net zero commitments and how to negotiate with commercial landlords in order to sort of achieve net zero goals. And I think it's really highlighted for us that sometimes it's as important the questions you're asking your clients as the advice you're giving. So, you know, in one case, we asked a question to a client about their net zero commitments when negotiating contracts. This was for a large education college, and we used the net zero clauses in the key contracts, which resulted in them being implemented and adopted by 40 smaller colleges. So the scope to have a ripple effect through our clients' own supply chains and own contractual relationships is quite huge. And then I suppose reflecting on the growth of the B Corp movement, as you say, it's been exponential. It's been hockey stick in a sort of way that we probably didn't imagine back when we started out. And it's in multiple industries, different sectors of businesses of different sizes. And that, I think, really amplifies community voice. It's fair to say there's been a bit of an inflection point caused by that rapid growth. And I think it's a real sign it's becoming more mainstream and people are paying more attention. So it's been reflected in the media in some ways, but I think that's healthy and to be expected. And as the community grows, more complex businesses join and the movement is getting more diverse. And with those complex problems, we need complex solutions, which is where the new standards coming in next year is aiming to deal with those. And I think it's quite interesting. A lot of the sort of reflection on the growth has been on multinationals, for example. But in fact, when you look at the statistics, only 96% of B Corps are actually small or medium sized. So it's quite interesting, the actual makeup of the community. And I would say that for me, the B Corp movement is much more than just how many B Corps are certified. It's more about a sort of movement to transform the economic system, to change behaviour, culture and capitalism. So that's the sort of theory of change, and that's where initiatives like the Better Business Act come in trying to make B Corp status essentially mandatory for all businesses. So those are just some of my reflections on the growth of the movement.
Thank you, Louise. And yeah, I've been jotting down notes feverishly as there was so many good insights. And one of the early things you said, like just how B Corp helped you as an organization at Batesweld avoid mission drift as you grew over the years, which I think, I think it's something we hear, but it's probably as it becomes embedded, we take it for granted almost, but it helps you keep your eye on what you've determined as your North Star. And I also love that most of your suppliers are B Corps. Again, I think a common thing we hear, but from the outside in, you might not realize that just becomes with a little bit of focused effort, oftentimes a result of the process. And that's, as you say, so many of any organization's impact is in their value chain, right? And so that's how you create that wider economic systems change. You've mentioned a couple of times the Better Business Act, Louise. Could you just share a little bit more on what is that initiative? And because I know, Seismic's signed up to it, Bateswells has, a lot of other B Corps have, but non-B Corps are as well, like Virgin Startup. Can you just, what would an organization need to do to get involved with the Better Business Act?
Sure. So, I mean, the Better Business Act is a campaign to change the law. So specifically, it's a campaign to change Section 172 of the Companies Act. And you could go to the website, which sets out the proposed draft legislation on it. But the idea is that it's mandatory for all businesses. So the B Corp movement is like proof of concept. It's businesses voluntarily deciding to certify and become part of the community. This is saying, actually, we need to shift what the current legal position is, because the law on directors' duties does not currently reflect what is happening. It doesn't currently reflect the wider climate crisis that's going on. It doesn't currently reflect that directors need to be mandated to take into account wider stakeholders in their decision making. So it's the aim of it is to make that the sort of the baseline in legislation. So it would be a world first, and it's in terms of where it's at, there's been a lot of discussion with MPs. We had Better Business Day last year, about this time last year, where we went to Parliament and spoke to many MPs. It's got quite a lot of support from Labour, Greens, Lib Dems. And I think it's something that I could imagine being included in a manifesto come one of the next election, whenever the next election is. So it's on the radar. I'd say the current government isn't as supportive. It has slightly different priorities, but I think a shift in politics could see that it could become much more central. So any business can sign up. You don't need to be a B Corp to do that, and you can go to the Better Business Act website, and all of the information is there to sign up.
Great, thank you for that. Yeah, no, it's gotten a lot of attention and a lot of great momentum behind it. Just before opening up to questions from the wider group, there was a couple of examples that we gave that were around access to capital or the cost of capital, and how companies that are able to demonstrate a high ESG, strong ESG performance, they're finding it easier to get access to capital, or they're getting better terms on the capital that they're obtaining and securing. And just wondering if are you seeing anything similar in your work at Bates Wells? And is this a trend that others should be trying to leverage?
Absolutely. I mean, we've advised over many years impact investors and social lenders who have used this sort of mechanic around pricing incentives, so reduced interest rates in return for improved social or environmental key performance indicators. So this is something that's been going on at the more social end of the spectrum for a while. And what's happened is that the ESG movement in the more mainstream lending economy has grown quite quickly. And that's driven, I think, largely by downward pressure on banks with net zero commitments of their own. And the Loan Markets Association has developed template documentation on sustainability linked loans and green linked loans. So it's definitely something that we're seeing. We started to see loan agreements which include commitments by businesses to achieve B Corp certification in a certain number of years. And I think it's really important to recognise that to lenders, B Corp status is a really easy way for banks to identify that positive impact, the positive impact that borrower is having. So I think it will become increasingly important. I should say we also work for a number of B Corp social lenders. So we advise Triodos and Charity Bank, who are also very keen to lend to B Corps, and they're developing their sort of green loan products at the moment. So I think it's a very much a growing area. And I think it's interesting to note, I think you mentioned this, that, these B Corps, the statistics and data that is coming out around B Corps and their resilience in the market during recessionary times is very attractive to those types of lenders. So that data is encouraging. I think there was a 2023 B-Lab, or maybe it's 2022, the community survey that found that between 2017 and 2020, B Corp saw average turnover growth of 26% compared to the national average of 5%. And that 44% of B Corp seeking investment found certification helped attract those investors. And so I would expect that number to only increase given lender attention on these issues and the rise of ESG in recent years.
Wonderful, Louise. Yeah, we had a beginning of the year breakfast briefing on trends, and yes, these loans linked to ESG performance, it just seems to be booming, and lenders looking for concrete, credible ways to then measure that, and B Corp becoming an increasing mechanism that they're turning to. So, and it sounds like you and the team at Bates Wells are advising businesses on that. So if anyone's looking for some access to capital, reach out to Louise and the team at Bates Wells. I think, conscious of time, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Olivia, to facilitate any questions that come from the wider audience.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you, Louise. We always try to give a bit of time at the end of our sessions for any questions from the audience, and we like to keep that a safe space. So to let you all know, we'll be turning off the recording so that within the community here online in the session, you can feel free to ask whatever questions you